What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, is Callum Wiggins.
Yes, hello.
So, what we're doing today, if you can't tell by the title and all that, is we're going to break down something called One More Match. It's going to be focused around Eddie Guerrero, and this is sponsored by Patreon. So thank you to Guest 5 for sponsoring this episode. And for anybody who doesn't know what this is all about, here's a quick rundown of what this whole thing is revolving around. One More Match is, I guess, kind of self-explanatory. What would happen if this person had one more match? It's kind of a little bit based off of the Christian, I just want one more match type of thing. But it's also just the idea that a lot of people do this when it comes to somebody who's retired, somebody who, in this case, unfortunately passed away, or somebody who stepped away from the business in some fashion, one way or another. We did One More Match Shawn Michaels in the past, and we did One More Match China. So we have two instances of, somebody who stepped back in the ring, actually, and somebody who unfortunately won't be able to. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing here. We're going to revolve around Eddie Guerrero. We're going to talk about people who we think he could have a great match with, and just kind of shoot the shit about that kind of stuff. So we invite you to do the same in the comments below. Obviously, if you are listening to us on a platform that does not have comments, you can't leave a comment. But that's why you should head on over to YouTube, and while you are over there and you're leaving a comment and you're telling us your thoughts and your thoughts on our thoughts, you should also hit that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to the channel. And you should ring that little notification bell, because that way you will be aware of when videos get posted and when we go live for different things, including when we do our live Q2 mailbag coming up next week. And you should also hit the like button on the video, of course, if you like the video, because that helps out quite a bit. So before we get into that, how you doing, Callum?
Yeah, doing pretty good. It's different being like the only person on a Patreon requested one, so I'll try and carry my weight as well as Rob would usually do.
Yeah, Rob was going to be joining us for this. We spent the last 2 hours trying to figure out how to get his audio back to work, and hopefully that'll get up soon. But apologies for Rob not being on. He wanted to join it. We ran out of time. Yeah. So Rob, obviously, if you're listening, drop a comment below. Tell us who you would have picked, and maybe I'll get him on like a dark cast or something like that, and we'll figure it out. But we're gonna talk about a lot of different people here. We're gonna have a whole lot of discussion about this anyway. So hopefully, Guest 5 and everybody else feels like they're getting their, I guess, money's worth. Well, for Guest 5 at the very least.
Yeah, it's very much his money's worth. As long as he's entertained, we're fine. I don't give a fuck about anybody else caring about it. It's the person that's paying.
Yeah,
Person that's
Barry.
paying for this. Yeah.
Goddamn
Get
elephant.
in that corner with the elephant. Yeah.
Yeah. I still don't know where that came from. I forget. Some kind of random episode. But if you don't know about the whole Patreon setup, really quick plug for that, because we're already still in the beginning of this whole thing. The reason why this came about is, as I mentioned, Patreon donation from Guest 5. It's part of the Pick Your Poison tier. And what that means is it's not a tier as a crying, but level of the Patreon where, there's different levels for different things. And, if you donate $1, awesome, greatly appreciated, helps us keep the lights on, helps us do things like this and not have me not be able to sleep at night and stuff like that. That sounds a lot darker than it should. But $10 gives you access to the Darkcast tiers, the Darkcast podcasts that are Patreon exclusive episodes, and everything above that $10 mark, you get the same thing. You still get all that going up higher and higher. But the Pick Your Poison tier is one where you can request a special feature. So, for instance, this was something that we weren't planning on doing at all. But since Guest 5 reached that level, he was able to suggest, how about you do that? And then that's why we're doing it. That's kind of the whole point. So it's very interesting discussion that I feel like is something different. So I'm looking forward to breaking this down, because we don't talk about Eddie Guerrero all that often, and we don't do One More Match all that often because we've only done 2 of them. So it's very different to do this than to do the hot tags again, or pay-per-view predictions or something like that. It's good to deviate from that. So I'm excited. Hopefully everybody else is excited too.
I'm very excited because even though I've said historically many times before that I think Kurt Angle is the greatest professional wrestler of all time, I don't think there's a professional wrestler that I've enjoyed watching more than Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie is on, I guess that's a good way for us to start, to talk about just our thoughts on Eddie. Eddie is one of those guys that I don't hold to the same level that most other people do. Like, to me, he's not, when some people say, like, oh, they're in contention for the greatest of all time, I'm like, Eddie's not my top 10 or anything. I think he's fantastic. I think he's a hell of a wrestler. He had a great character. He was always entertaining, like even in WCW back in the day, because that's where I originally came across Eddie. Was I'm going back and forth between Nitro and Raw. I remember pre LWO Eddie, where he's basically just having the cruiserweight matches with Dean Malenko and with Juventud and Ray and Jericho and that whole group. Like, that is where I got my first impressions of Eddie, and then the LWO, and then eventually WWE. But I wasn't watching during the Ruthless Aggression era, so I wasn't in the thick of it for like the peak of his career. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't hold him to the same top 10 type of regard. But I can see why people do. He's not one of those guys that I think is so massively overrated that I don't get it. He's not somebody who, if somebody said that he was their favorite of all time, that I would be like, you gotta be kidding me. What the hell? Like, if somebody said that about, like, I don't know, pick a random thing. Brodus Clay. Like, I liked Brodus Clay, but he's no, that's how I got in the wrestling type of guy, At least from my perspective.
Well, in terms of my experience with Eddie Guerrero, so I started watching in 2002, and that was the year that Eddie came back from his hiatus from WWE due to being fired because of the like drug addictions, everything else. So this was him on the comeback trail, and he was part of the famed SmackDown 6 with Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Chavo, Edge, and Rey Mysterio, and that's kind of like the burgeoning of my love for professional wrestling was fitting between like these 6 wrestlers and Brock Lesnar, because I only exclusively watched SmackDown for the first like 2 or 3, like I think about 2 years of me watching wrestling was only watching SmackDown. I didn't watch Raw. I went back and retrospectively watched Raw. Glad I didn't actually spend most of my childhood watching it, because I don't think I would have stuck around as long as I had done if Triple H had been on top of all the other time. And seeing him in matches with Scott Steiner and Kevin Nash weren't exactly my cup of tea. So
why were you only watching SmackDown?
It was the first thing that I came across when I was like just flicking around channels. I think I've told the story before. Like maybe when I first started watching wrestling was just flicking around an episode like Sky Sports before going on a holiday, which meant that I was up at around about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, getting ready to going on vacation somewhere, and I just flicked on SmackDown, and the first match I recall ever seeing was Brock Lesnar versus Hulk Hogan in the main event episode of SmackDown just before SummerSlam 2002. And so I started watching from that point, and I immediately gravitated towards people like Angle and Edge and Benoit and Guerrero, because they were the real people just like putting on great matches week after week. But Eddie was slightly different because I got to see because originally it just struck me as like, okay, there's just a tag team, him and Chavo, Los Guerreros. But then I saw his story develop with him just being so charismatic with the lie, cheat, and steal gimmick. His matches were like, they were great because he was a fantastic wrestler, but there was so much character and intrigue into it because the way that he would try and steal victories and like throw chairs at the referee and then fall down and just make it seem like the other wrestler had hit him over the head with a chair or something like that. And then get seeing him win the WWE Championship with Brock Lesnar was like a massive like euphoric moment, because it's a guy that you don't expect to ever win the WWE Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Him actually winning it was just like, okay, this is a tremendous moment for fans of quote unquote real wrestling. And I can't say I was in that category at that point in time, but I just knew that I loved Eddie, and him winning the title was great. Him losing it to JBL wasn't so great. It made me hate JBL. It's kind of painted my image. And to be fair, like, it's a heel, I'm supposed to hate JBL. But then but again, retrospectively gone back and looked at him, just thought, yeah, his reign just wasn't very interesting, which is the biggest issue I have with it, not the fact that he was a heel. But then I think I remember his feud with Rey Mysterio over Dominic and all that other stuff, and seeing him as a heel. It didn't make me hate him significantly, but just like took the edge off of it a little bit. Him coming back to quote unquote normal with the feud with Batista and all that other stuff was a nice, refreshing change of pace. And then his like that tribute show, because I remember like hearing his death being said on like Sky Sports News or something like that, and it just really affected me more than I imagined it was going to affect me. I just like, because this is a guy that I, for all intents and purposes, had just been watching for 3 years, but barely even that. And yeah, just like I still go back and watch that tribute episode every now and again, just because it hits me with such a raw emotional pull. Because I've gone back over the years and I've watched his stuff in WCW, his matches with like Rey Mysterio and Dean Malenko, like you say. I've gone back and watched his ECW stuff with like Benoit having those like long matches that were actually like the backbone of ECW, where it showed that okay, this isn't just a garbage wrestling promotion. They have some guys that are like really good technical wrestlers as well. So yeah, I kind of class him as a top 10 all-time talent, just because he was part of my growing up in the business. Was a lot of that was based on Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
And I feel like he had every single attribute you would want in a wrestler. Unless you're Vince McMahon and you want someone to be like 5 inches taller than he was.
And I mean, like, that's kind of where I'm coming from too. Like, I had said, like, Brodus Clay is somebody who, and not to just crap on Brodus, but like, you know, that's somebody who I kind of can't imagine that even people that were growing up in that 2010, I think, or so, that was around when he was in there. I don't know why I'm talking so much about Brodus, but like, that's just an example. Like, if you grew up in that era, maybe you hold him to a higher regard. And I feel like anybody who grew up with the Ruthless Aggression era probably does have Eddie in their top 10. And I think it's completely valid. Like, I grew up with New Gen. So New Gen and Attitude Era to me strikes me more. And there's plenty of people who they grew up in like the thick of Hulkamania. So to them, their top 10 is Hogan, Warrior, Savage, Flair, Piper, like that kind of thing. And then there's people from before that, and you get like Jim Ross always talks all the time about, George Hackenschmidt and Danny Hodge and all these people and stuff. Somebody like myself, I don't even watch any of their stuff. So to me, they could be fantastic, but I don't have that kind of perspective. And with Eddie, he was always a guy that I saw as very entertaining and somebody who not necessarily I would have pictured as a main event guy, but somebody who I never really didn't enjoy watching. So I'm sure if I would have been watching in 2004, 2005, 2003, whatever it is, I probably would have been like, oh my God, Eddie is so perfectly in that spot right now.
Well, I mean, I guess part of the reason why certain people, I'm not saying that there's no reason why you shouldn't have him in your top 10, you can have anybody in your top 10 you want to have, but also part of that is due to the fact that he died so early.
Yeah.
So he would be 53 now. So he probably would be, if he was alive still, and I wish that he still was, but if he had been, then he probably would be out of the business now. He might be a trainer with WWE, or he might still be going. I mean, like Jericho's still going in his early 50s, but considering what we know now about Eddie Guerrero's death, we would have hoped that he would have been out of the business by now, because clearly being in the business was putting too much strain on his body.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, obviously, it's never going to happen, and that's not the circumstances that happened, but I would have thought that, like, if things could have worked out better, I think he would have wrestled for at least a couple more years, and he probably would have become a little bit of a producer backstage, or some kind of, working at the performance center or something like that. I mean, I don't know him super duper well. Like, I haven't seen 1,000 different documentaries about him and all that, but he strikes me as the type that he would probably be a little restless if he wasn't in the ring.
No, he like wrestling business was his life pretty much. Like, it was his family, and then the wrestling business, and that was kind of all he
Yeah.
was about. He would still be been doing some sort of work in it nowadays.
Right.
But it's just a case of I imagine that he would have done some sort of training because just how much he knew about the business, how well traveled he was, how much experience that he could bring in both a character perspective and like just the technical side of the ring. I mean, if he'd have still been alive past like even the few months afterwards, like there was always the talk about the fact that he was about to win the World Heavyweight Championship because Batista was broken down and injured and was going to be taken off the shelf for a while anyway. And then he was going to have the match at WrestleMania 22 with Shawn Michaels.
That would have been fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously what ended up happening was that he had Rey Mysterio probably would never have become a world champion without this. As great as Mysterio is, he wouldn't have become a world champion, at least not as immediately, without this event happening.
And if Rey would have won the title, he more than likely wouldn't have won the Royal Rumble and won the title at WrestleMania. He would have probably won the title at like some, Vengeance or something like that. Like
he might have done the thing. He might have done the thing that happened with him winning the WWE Championship. That he won it at the end of a tournament on Raw and then lost it an hour or so later.
Yeah, could have been
just
that.
As like, okay, it's a cursory nod to, okay, we understand how long you've been with the company and how much you've done for us. So we're just going to give you the WWE Championship for a short period and then you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and obviously Michaels ended up facing Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 22, which was also a fun match, but not in the way that you would have hoped that Michaels versus Guerrero would have gone.
No, I imagine that would have been probably one of those matches that we look back on, kind of like the Angle match with Shawn, where it's just they know how to tell a story, they know how to technically wrestle, they know how to get the audience, and like the Jericho match too. Like, just you get two people that know what they're doing, are confident in their abilities, can call it on the fly, can plan some stuff ahead of time, and just be artists.
Yeah, it's two guys that will go out there hellbent on stealing the show.
Yeah.
Because essentially, I mean, the year before that, Mysterio and Guerrero fought in the opener at WrestleMania 21. And that was essentially their goal in that match, which they didn't quite achieve in that one. But their goal was in that was say, okay, we're going to put on as great a match as possible because we're fucking annoyed that we're doing the opening match on this entire card. And so we're going to try and make everyone else look bad in the process. We're just putting on so good that nobody else can match us.
Yeah,
and then Michaels versus Angle happened, all that was that.
And Eddie and Shawn would have stolen the show.
Absolutely, sure. Yeah. I think I don't think there was any question with that. I can't remember any match at WrestleMania 22 that really blew like my socks off by any stretch of imagination. It's like, I think the best match on that card, if I can recall correctly, was probably Edge and Foley, maybe the Money in the Bank ladder match. So
what was
I'm pretty sure
main event for that?
Cena Triple H.
Okay, I don't remember loving that.
No, so I'm pretty sure Guerrero and Michaels would have walked to winning it. I mean, it did have the lingerie match between Candice Michelle and Tori Wilson, so you never know.
So I guess that's something to address, though. The idea that one more match. I mean, there's some rules to the segment. There are some flexibilities to the segment because obviously the whole idea is like if somebody could come back and wrestle again, which it's not going to happen for a case like Eddie Guerrero. You got to play a little bit of flexibility with some of those things. But I kind of approach this as you sort of can't pick somebody who has retired or has passed away as the person to face the person who has retired or passed away, because I think that's like kind of doubling up a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like to me, yeah, my go-to answer, if you just have like anybody from any era against anybody from any era or whatever like that, I would have loved to have seen Eddie versus Shawn, but I can't pick Shawn. So
yeah, you kind of have to take the perspective of if you plonked Eddie Guerrero now into the current era.
Right.
So nothing else. It's like you can't just say, okay, so I've taken Eddie Guerrero and put him into today's landscape of. I'm not saying it has to be limited to WWE, but any promotion you want to put him into, but it's only those wrestlers that can fight. So okay, so I've taken Eddie Guerrero back, but I'm also bringing Randy Savage back as well.
Yeah, let's get Prime Eddie Guerrero versus Prime Mr. Perfect. Okay, well then we're just fantasy booking in a completely different scenario. Then we can start getting into like, the one more match Shawn Michaels that we did. We were talking about like the people on the main roster and all that other kind of stuff. And instead of it being like, okay, him against Prime Ric Flair or against, whatever. So we're going to mostly be looking at the WWE roster that we currently have right now, but there's also the NXT roster, NXT UK, like all those people, they kind of get factored into. And for the sake of it, I mean, we could probably talk about some other company things. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean,
AEW and
you might want to have branched out to AEW and New Japan.
New Japan, yeah. Because I don't follow Ring of Honor, so I have no idea who would be a great option for that. I don't follow Impact. I have no idea about that. But I guess, you know what? Do you want to start with one of those and go back to WWE, kind of hold the main thing for that? Why not?
I mean, if you want to just talk about these ones a little bit, so I'll start with the New Japan ones because I know there's not going to be like a huge amount of conversation. You know, certain New Japan people, but this would probably more in depth if Rob was on it. But the names that I would come up with is kind of like the names you'd expect. So Okada's there and Ospreay and people like that. But the two people or three people that really stood out to me in particular were Toru Yano, who is the
he's the one that's kind of funny.
Yeah, the funny guy.
Okay.
The funny goofy guy that runs in the corner and tries to take down the turnbuckle pads and pull people's hair and stuff like that. Because it would be a comedy match, and I wouldn't say this if I could only have one more match, I'd have a comedy match with Toru Yano. But just like if you extend it out to a few matches, like that would be a lot of fun because they both were really good comedy wrestlers. And then the other two that really came to mind were Tetsuya Naito, who's the current champion, because he has the same sort of like laid back, charismatic style that Guerrero could sometimes pull out. Like, when Guerrero used to like sit up in the corner, put his legs up, that sort of thing. You could do that, and then Naito's just doing like his little pose on the mat.
Naito would be my pick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, out of New Japan. But the one that actually I ended up going with into like my top one for New Japan was Jay White.
Oh, that's good. I didn't expect you to say that one.
I mean, I love Jay White's style of wrestling. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but his style is very much classic heel, cheat, pull the referee aside, get his manager to like distract the referee while he kicks someone in the nuts or something like those lines. And I think that kind of interacts well with Guerrero's lying, cheating, and stealing. Like Guerrero could do that the same sort of thing, but in the babyface perspective, and try and use some of Jay White's trickery and his heel tactics against him. And I think that would make for a pretty interesting match.
See, I thought you were going to potentially go. I mean, I knew you'd go with Okada as an option because it's Okada. Like,
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, there's so many great wrestlers in New Japan, at least in my perspective. Like could be Okada, could be Tanahashi, could be Ibushi, could be like Hiromu Takahashi. It could be loads of people. I was just trying to fit people in that seem to have like a contrasting or a similar style to Guerrero, which would make for an interesting match.
Yeah, that's why Naito stands out to me. Like, I mean, I'm not as anywhere near as familiar as you are when it comes to New Japan, so like I can't tell you like the differences between like Tanahashi versus Ibushi, but like I know that I like Ibushi wrestling. So if you put like Kota Ibushi versus Eddie Guerrero, I'm gonna like that match. And if you put Naito, I feel like there's a little bit more chances for some storytelling because I think that like Ibushi, for instance, like from my perspective of Ibushi, it would be a straight up match more so than kind of like playing around with it.
Yeah, I feel like just the ideas of their two characters interacting would be a more interesting experience than just having a great match with Okada or a great match with Ibushi.
Yeah,
it'd still be great matches either way, but I just wanted to put some people that had some similar characteristics together instead.
So when it comes to AEW, I mean, I kind of like I could see a scenario in a future. I mean, who knows? I mean, obviously, we're talking about like time travel and saving people from unfortunately passing away and all these other kind of things. So we don't know what anything would be like, but I could see a scenario where if Eddie Guerrero was still around, that he would go to an AEW. Like,
yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he'd have left WWE at some point towards the back end of his career.
Kind of like, well, WWE is not giving me the creative freedom that I want, and I'm going to go to this new company with somebody like Jericho, who I trust, and
I think it would be something to do with like the less of a schedule.
Yeah, that's a definite thing. That's a benefit for a lot of those kind of guys. And I mean, Vicky popped up in AEW. Like, Who knows if there's like some people backstage that have like a really strong tie to the Guerrero family that would be like some kind of a thing like that. But in a theoretical world, let's just say we're gonna pick him up, put him there, and who knows about all the stuff that goes along with it.
Well, I imagine like at one point, I mean, just not to sidetrack away from AEW because we'll talk about that, but I imagine, considering the fact that Chavo was working for Lucha Underground for a long time, that if he had left WWE at some point, he probably would have popped up in Lucha Underground for a while, was like this big legendary figure.
Yeah, if not like the top guy or something like that, it could have been the guy that they built the company around.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't really know too much about that, but like Eddie against like Ricochet, like
Yeah.
yeah, give it to me. Now the AEW roster, I don't feel like there's as many people that I would really pair him up with. Like I don't think, given the circumstances, that I'd be like, I really feel like we're missing out on this Adam Page versus Eddie Guerrero match, or like, oh man, like Shima versus Eddie Guerrero. Like I feel like there's only kind of a handful,
Yeah.
and one of the names that stands out to me as far as working with somebody who can be really learning a lot from Eddie is Sammy Guevara.
That was like one of the big names that I highlighted as well.
I think that would be the type of feud that you would find out later from Sammy, that he learned more from working with Eddie than he did if he would have worked like another 3 years with other people or something.
Yeah, I kind of feel that same way as well. I think he has a lot of like, and it's obviously not the same sort of style of wrestler, but he's got a lot of that swagger and charisma about him already at a young age. I think just having somebody who has that level of experience, who's probably been in Guevara's position before, would really benefit his career going forward a long way as well. And I think it'd be a great match as well.
Yeah, that would be something I would 100% be down for. I think between the two, I don't know why I'm comparing the two as if you have to pick one or the other or whatever, but like if you said Kenny or Cody, I'd go Cody.
I don't know who I'd go out of those two, but like obviously they'd both be probably really good matches. But I don't feel like either of them I would end up picking. Even in the AEW roster, I feel like there's probably a good handful of people that I'd put over those two.
What are some other ones that you can think of? Because
Well,
there's not a bunch that stand out to me.
The first one that really stood out to me outside of Sammy Guevara was Phoenix, Ray Phoenix.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Phoenix. I just bypassed him entirely on this list.
Because, well, he just seems to be like what Rey Mysterio used to be in terms of that super high flying style. So if you could pull out that sort of match with Guerrero, I mean, Guerrero's not as, at least at the point of his death, was not as sprightly as he used to be. He definitely didn't fit the bill of a cruiserweight anymore. But he could probably still, he still demonstrated he could wrestle that type of style in his final feud, big feud with Rey Mysterio. So I think Phoenix would be good. Or if you wanted to do Lucha Bros against Los Guerreros, I think that could still probably be a decent match as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the Young Bucks would also be quite good in that tag team setting against Eddie and Chavo. Or if you wanted to do Eddie and Ray, whoever you wanted to have as the tag team against them.
I feel like Eddie could do something fun with Orange Cassidy.
He probably would, but I don't know if I really want to go like one more match and it's just like it's Orange Cassidy.
No, I mean he's certainly not my pick for one more match on the AEW roster. But like if let's say you had like a year of Eddie, and you could just have like kind of what I'm assuming that we're going to get with Edge, where Edge is going to do like a best of sort of tour, wrestle maybe like 5-6 people, maybe a couple little more depending on how good he's feeling, and then call it quits after that. Like if we had that going on, I'd love to get one segment even just with Eddie and Orange Cassidy. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I think another one that kind of stuck out was Darby Allen as well. Just because he's a bit.
I don't think that would work out all that well.
I think though, just him being a bit crazy about all this stuff and Eddie trying to be having to get wily in order to avoid him would probably be at least slightly interesting. Maybe not sort of like as big a deal. If you wanted to go like the big man, small man thing, I thought maybe just him against Luchasaurus or Lance Archer might be fun as well.
I mean, any of these matches, if you could figure out some kind of way to simulate it and have it be like real, not just like, let's put it on WWE 2K or whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, even if something like Darby Allen, like I don't think that they would have amazing chemistry, I would still totally be 100% down for watching it. Like Luchasaurus, yeah, cool. Lance Archer, awesome. can't tell you my favorite Lance Archer match, but I'd be totally up for it because he seems cool. So yeah, Pac, for instance, Pac versus Eddie. Yeah, give it to me. I'll watch it. Like, I don't think that, for instance, like Stu Grayson versus Eddie would be like something that stands out, but Eddie was a fun performer. So you put him up with anybody, I think he's going to try to boost them up, even if it's like Luther. To be fair, I'm crapping on Luther quite a bit. I haven't seen him wrestle. He might be great. I don't know. He just seems like he's not anything that great. But I also have this approach to one more match, and some people feel the opposite about it. Some people agree with me on it. I feel like if you bring somebody back from retirement or from, this other world, you don't do the match you've already seen. So, for instance, very low on my list for AEW would be Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't get it when people do, like, for instance, The Rock should come back and he should fight Brock. Like, you've seen Rock and Brock when they were both younger. Why wouldn't you want to see The Rock versus Roman or, like that? Like, if I want Eddie, I'm not going to say, like, okay, Eddie comes back and he fights Rey Mysterio. We've seen it, like it's so the Jericho thing. Yeah, they've learned some different things and all that's different. But if I got to pick between that or Sammy Guevara, I'm picking Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, I understand, like, completely. If you've got a one more match scenario, you should pick something that's a fresh match that we haven't seen before and think that would work really well, rather than having Jericho. I think there is something to be said about the dynamics changing. Jericho is not the same performer that he was when he last wrestled Eddie Guerrero. But so, like I say, it's like a 2-year-long run. Then yeah, have a match with Chris Jericho, have a match with Rey Mysterio, see what you've like adapted and changed, and because at least the argument is that we know those matches will end up being great. So you might as well do them if you've got more time to work with. If you've got one more match, you should go with somebody who's a bit more of a fresh matchup.
Yeah. So we're taking that approach. We're going to move over to the WWE side of things. Very quick plug. If you are enjoying one more match so far and you want us to do more of these, consider donating to the Patreon we talked about before. If that's not the case and you were like, I would only toss a little spare change their way if I could get something out of it, check out the merchandise shops, TeePublic and Redbubble for Fanboys Anonymous, Smark Out Moment, and a Mango Tees. So the WWE roster, I kind of like approaching it this way. I don't know about if you've got any notes or anything with this. I don't have a whole lot of notes, but I think it's kind of not something you need to have like tons and tons of notes about. But I kind of like going through each little section of the roster and kind of balancing it out that way. I feel like that's a good kind of, instead of bouncing around too much. So I kind of feel like let's start with NXT UK. If you were going to pick somebody from NXT UK to be the one more match for Eddie, anybody stand out to you?
I can't say there's anyone that's really super catching my attention. Like, I've had some listed down. Like, I thought Jordan Devlin might be interesting, or Tyler Bate obviously would probably be the most obvious pick, just because I think he's the best pound for pound wrestler in NXT UK. But if I like gun to my head, you ask me, I'd probably end up saying, surprisingly enough, Cassius Ohno.
Oh, I didn't think about Ono. That might, yeah.
Just because I like the size differential thing. Like, I think that's a good dynamic to go against. I feel like he's got so much experience and so much poise in the way that he works, because he just knows what he's going to do, and he just can. I think with how well traveled he is, he can just take, okay, this is what Eddie does really well. This is what I do really well. This is going to be an awesome match. So I think I'd end up going with Ono.
You might have sold me on that one, because the one that stood out to me was Noam Dar.
I thought that was an interesting one as well.
Because I think Dar is very underrated. I don't think that he's going to be some 20-time world champion or anything like that, but I feel like Dar is slept on a lot. Like, he gets that he could be a douche character. He pulls it off well. I think he's fun in the ring. I think that he would definitely play heel in this for sure. But Eddie would kind of like get under his skin really well, and I think that would be a good feud to watch too. Ono is a good pick though. That might be the better pick. Huh. I mean, Ono wouldn't be my overall. So,
No,
if we're breaking this down little section by section, though, I mean, that might be the best one for NXT UK. I might have to tip my hat that I'm not wearing right now to you on that one.
that's fine. Like we couldn't obviously tell by any like real measure, but I just thought, yeah, just put, even though it's an experienced guy, technically doesn't really need the rub from Eddie Guerrero, like final match. I think it would still be like probably the best match that could be produced.
205 Live doesn't really even count. I mean,
No,
there's only like 6 people. It's not like it's like, oh, okay, well, did you balance out Kendrick or Kanellis or but let's lump them into the NXT side of things. NXT, there's obviously a lot of people that he would have a damn good match with.
oh hell yeah.
Adam Cole, of course. There's no way that would be anything but great. I think that Roderick Strong would be great, but I think Adam Cole would be a better option. Adam Cole out of the 4 in the Undisputed Era stands out to me more.
That's funny. I actually went with if I was to pick someone from the Undisputed Era group, I'd go Roderick Strong over everybody.
Really?
I just think he's the best worker out of the 4 of them. And he reminds me more of like that kind of Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle style worker that Guerrero had so many great matches with in the past.
I feel like Cole would tell a better story.
Oh yeah, he's
Strong.
more of a he's more of a storyteller. I just for my taste, because I like to see just more like athleticism and pure stuff like that I would go with Strong over Cole. But I don't think either of them are bad options.
No, I mean you put him in with Bobby Fish, you put him in with Kyle O'Reilly, they're going to be fun too.
Yeah.
Although Bobby Fish would be my 4th.
Again, the Undisputed Era versus there's the Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish against Eddie and Chavo in their prime would be an awesome match. Yeah.
I would love to see Keith Lee against Eddie, but I think that there's I would rather see Adam Cole, for instance, against him rather than Keith Lee.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about Keith Lee just because, yes, he can do all this incredible stuff. But I feel like it's only great him. I don't say it's only great when he does that stuff, but I feel like it's more him suited when he's facing another big guy.
Yeah.
Because I don't really want to see him do a Hurricane Rana or an Eddie Guerrero, and that's kind of what you want Eddie Guerrero to be doing.
And it's kind of weird to see somebody as big as Keith Lee against somebody who's smaller, like Eddie, and to have... Because Eddie's going to go into the match a babyface.
Yeah.
There's almost no scenario in this where you could bring Eddie back and he would get booed. It's just not going to happen. And I don't think that Keith Lee can work as a heel against Eddie.
No, I don't. No, I mean, it potentially could just do like the big guys squashing him down. I just don't think that would be as fun or as entertaining a match as you could do with some other people.
Yeah. Same thing for like Dominik Dijakovic. Sure, the match would be great. I'm sure Dijakovic would learn a lot, but oddly enough, there's bigger fish to fry, but not in a physical sense because he's pretty much the biggest guy on the roster. You can't go wrong with Velveteen Dream versus Eddie Guerrero.
Again, it's just one of those things where, yes, he's really good. He's really good as a character and he's really good as that sort of performer. I just don't think he's good enough in the ring to keep up with Guerrero.
Oh, Eddie would win.
Oh, no, it's a case that Eddie would win, but it's just a case just him in the match. I think Guerrero would outwork him too comprehensively, and you'd end up thinking, okay, so, yeah, it was a great match but you'd be left thinking, okay, that was a great match because Eddie did 90% of the work and Dream was just there for the ride.
I can see that. I think he'd learn a lot. I think that they'd have some fun gimmicky stuff, but I can see that point of view.
Not saying it would be a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. I just feel like I would like it to be more of a 50-50 thing. I just don't think Dream's at that level yet.
Between Ciampa and Gargano, who do you think would be a better one? I'd go Gargano.
I'd go Gargano as well. I think they'd both be great. I just think Gargano has a bit more of the... I would like Eddie to be the bigger guy in that sort of scenario. And I guess he's bigger than Ciampa as well, but I feel like Gargano would be able to do a lot more of the flying about stuff, so Eddie could be a bit more mat-based in the match.
Any other people from NXT? I mean, again, it's the type of thing where it's like you put them in there against Pete Dunne, it's going to be fun. You put them in there against so-and-so, it's going to be fun. But Finn Balor, that could be good.
Yeah, Balor would be great, yeah. I think the other people that stood out to me were Leo Rush. just because of he reminds me a lot again of a younger Rey Mysterio doing all the high flying action stuff. I feel like he would learn a great deal by working with somebody who's been in the cruiserweight before, but has moved up and has developed a bit more of an edge to his character. And the other one was Matt Riddle, just because he reminds me again. He's a lot of this suplex throwing, like power orientated person. I feel like he would blend well with Guerrero because Matt Riddle reminds me of a lot of the elements again of like an Angle, a Benoit, or a thinner, smaller Lesnar, that sort of thing.
So you want to go Raw or SmackDown next? You pick.
I think I had more on my side from the Raw side, so I guess SmackDown will probably be the first place to go.
Okay, you're gonna hate me for this. I legitimately think Baron Corbin could be a good option.
Listen, he could be a good option because he is a big man. I've never ever said, well, at least not in recent years or whatever, but I think that Baron Corbin is a bad wrestler. He's not a bad wrestler. He's a good wrestler. He has a lot of very good, solid fundamentals. The issue that I've always had with him is the fact that he's overexposed for his level of ability.
I feel like a Corbin and Eddie feud would be some of the best work that Corbin could ever do in the ring, and some of the best work character-wise, because I kind of feel like Eddie would fuck with him, and Corbin's good at being like the heel that you can laugh at, but at the same time, at some point, he's going to get his hands on you. He's going to give you a deep six, and it's going to look like that hurt. And the like him being taller, him being able to like be actually like running around. Like I mean, I'm a huge fan of Braun Strowman, but for instance, like if you're going to give me like a bigger guy versus Eddie, I'd go Corbin over Strowman because I feel like Corbin can work better with somebody like Eddie than Strowman could. Strowman would be a little bit too slow, and it'd be a little bit too big of a disparity of size too. So like that could be a lot of fun. And of course, Corbin would lose, so that everybody would be cheering and everything. Like I actually have him very high up on my like overall list. Funny enough.
Like I said, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think it would be a fun match with like having a firm, well placed heel against Guerrero, who'd obviously be cheered. There is just part of my mind which I'm never ever going to be able to break free of. Let's say Eddie Guerrero's final ever match was against Baron Corbin.
Oh yeah, how bad would you feel if his last match he gets brought back? It's against Corbin, and Corbin wins, and he could say that he retired both Eddie and Kurt Angle.
Hey, why do you think I'm not saying Charlotte Flair for this either? It's like because you just know it's gonna, you know what the result is going to be, and you're not going to be happy about it. So, but yeah, I can't dislodge that from my mind. I can't have a situation where it's Corbin having his final match.
Yeah, I mean, there's still people on my list that I'd put higher, but he is surprisingly high up from what I think a lot of people would do. I think that if you polled most people, Corbin wouldn't be in their top 20 picks, and I have him as like maybe my number 5 or so. There still are some other people though. I mean, there's some great options here. Like I'd love to see Sami Zayn. He's lower on my list than King Corbin, but I think Sami Zayn could work really well with him.
Yeah, Sami would be great. I feel like that would be a more dynamic match than the Corbin one, but again, we haven't. It's different because Sami Zayn now isn't really the Sami Zayn that he was 2 or 3 years ago.
No.
So I don't know whether it wouldn't be as high. Like if this was like 4 years ago, then Sami Zayn would be like an instant like top 3 pick for me, just because him on his best work is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and him against Guerrero would be great on any scale, but maybe not just at the moment.
I feel like Sammy from around the era of when he was feuding with Owens on the main roster at the first little bit, if you put him with Eddie in its prime, and especially if you transport that in a bubble and you put that back on like Nitro, would be one of those matches people would talk about forever.
Yeah.
Sheamus and I'm not Sheamus, Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro for that matter. Like, yeah.
Yeah, of course it'd be great.
I think between those two, I'd go Cesaro.
You see, I think the Cesaro one would be a better match. The Shinsuke Nakamura one would be more interesting dynamic, really.
Yeah, I can see that.
In terms of SmackDown one, the one that struck me immediately was Shorty G. Because, well, even though, again, I wouldn't want it to be right now because the Shorty G thing is stupid. But if you go back a year and it's Chad Gable, or even like a couple of years where it's Chad Gable and he's actually been pushed slightly, then like he's the closest approximation you're going to get to a Kurt Angle on today's roster.
That's true.
And him and Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero's feud was fantastic. Like they had some brilliant matches together. So I think that Shorty G, Chad Gable would be able to like fill that void pretty well.
I'm a big fan of The Miz, but I don't think that would be a great option.
No, I'd say the same thing about Morrison as well.
Yeah. I don't think that, for instance, like Morrison, he's more athletic than The Miz, for instance, but I don't feel like his athleticism would match with Eddie all that well. And The Miz, I feel, could have a good verbal feud leading up to that, but then I think that their match will get a little bit too much him being like the power player, and I don't pick Miz as being like the tough guy in a match a lot.
No, I wouldn't choose any member of the New Day really either. I just don't think that because they're just like so big baby faces right now that the dynamic wouldn't work really.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things before we get on to some other people that I think maybe a bigger deal on either SmackDown or Raw is Lucha House Party. So it's just a case of which one do you think is going to have the best match with Guerrero? Because I looked at all of them just to say, like, even though none of them would be my pick, but just if it's a case of, okay, Guerrero's going to come back, but he has to fight Lucha House Party. Which member of Lucha House Party do you put him with? And I go grab Metalik. I just feel like he's the one who's kind of closest in size to Guerrero, that he can kind of have a bit more synergy in the match, and he's done a lot of great things. I feel like he has, out of the three of them, he's the one whose potential has been untapped the most in WWE.
See, I'd actually go Lindsay.
Not the fact that none of us went Kalisto.
Yeah, so. Well, Kalisto's like the obvious pick because he's going the furthest, but at the same time, I feel like Lindsay is the guy that's been untapped, and he's got a lot of passion that I feel, again, like, how much did you have untapped and how much hasn't just come out naturally, but like, I always get this feeling from Lindsay that he wants to be that next Rey Mysterio, and that if a couple little things were tweaked, it maybe could happen. Like, I think he's got it in him, and, in a different world, he probably is like a megastar. I wouldn't pick him, though. Like, I mean, that wouldn't be, grand scheme of things, I'm not going to pick him over that. I think Dolph Ziggler would be an amazing pick.
Yeah, again, it's just again one of those things with the Dolph Ziggler character. It just feels a bit stale. I think a match with Guerrero would be great. Just again, it's just one of those things of like giving it to Dolph Ziggler. You can give it to Dolph Ziggler 5, maybe even 10 years ago at this point. Then yeah, it's going to be great, and it's going to be like this big experience with this really hungry guy. At the moment, he just feels like a guy going through the motions too much.
I mean, you give me Dolph Ziggler from when he was a little bit more passionate over that, I'm going to pick that one. But I still think that Ziggler has a lot that he could offer with that kind of thing. I think he can more than hold himself in the ring. I feel like he'd play a good foil to like Eddie having fun for like the feud. That would be one of my higher picks. Still not my main pick, but should we address the elephant in the SmackDown room? Other than Barry?
Barry's here. Yeah. Didn't know if there was a Barry in the SmackDown roster. Well, the one that's the elephant in the room is Braun Strowman, surely, or the Thing.
I don't see any Barry. I see a Jeffrey. I see. There's 2 Jeffreys. Yeah, because Jeff Hardy and Elias is Jeffrey.
Oh.
No Barrys. I guess the closest is Big E.
So is the elephant in the room you're talking about? Are you talking about the Thing?
Actually, no.
Good, because like it definitely wouldn't be the Bray Wyatt.
No, I mean, for that matter, it'd be interesting. a feud. Like the match, I would certainly not want to pick that over anybody else. But
Are you talking about Epico, right?
no, Primo. Come
Oh,
on, we know that Primo's the better one of the Colognes.
yeah.
But it's Daniel Bryan. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't have Daniel Bryan as a potential top 5, if not top 3 on your list, I don't know what you're doing. Daniel Bryan's pretty much perpetually going to be a potential option for, I think, almost any of these one more match things.
Yeah, because I mean, just a couple of years ago, we might have ended up doing a segment of. We felt like we'd end up doing a segment of one more match, Daniel Bryan,
Yeah.
because but things have changed for the better, and yeah, I just don't think that you can look past somebody who's just so unbelievably good in the ring, then just think, okay, him and Eddie Guerrero, yeah, that's going to be absolute magic.
There's absolutely no way Eddie versus Daniel Bryan, especially if that was happening like at WrestleMania or SummerSlam or something where they would get like a lot of time. There's no way that wouldn't just tear the house down, be one of those memorable matches.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's my number one pick. Like, he's definitely really high up there. Just there's a slightly different rule applies really to Daniel Bryan than pretty much anybody else on the roster. Like, there's a few other people that are kind of at his level, and Dogs is just like agreeing with me with that statement. But there's a few people that are kind of like at close to his level, but it's just there is like almost a Daniel Bryan rule to this like one more match concept. Just like you have to have him as one of the people high up there because of how good he is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's different if it's like one more match, Earthquake, where you're just sort of like, all right, you want to put him against a big guy, or one more
Yeah,
match,
well,
China. We didn't pick Daniel Bryan because it's
no,
women's division, but
it's just a case of like it's like if we were doing this podcast like some odd how like he had that capacity to do that in the new generation era, and you're just saying, okay, well, how could you not even consider having like a top guy fighting Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, you just pick those people because they're the best people in the roster at this point in time.
But I do agree with you that Daniel Bryan is not my main pick. There is somebody that I put higher up on him. Anybody else in
But,
SmackDown?
there's the obvious picks of like Roman Reigns would probably have a great match with him, but I don't feel like that's like pushing too far up boundaries. Mustafa Ali it'd be a fun like babyface match, but I don't feel like it has the same dynamic or edge to it that some other people would have. And no, I wouldn't do Edge either because they had a great feud, but
Yeah,
I know he's on the Raw side of things, but like just because I mentioned Edge,
yeah, it came to my mind too.
they had a great feud before, but like again, don't want to revisit it just yet.
And like Drew Gulak would be a lot of fun, but he's lower on the card. They're never going to pick him in that kind of scenario. And
Yeah,
on the Raw side of things, again, there's names you could toss out. Like I highly doubt that it would be not fun to watch Ricochet versus Eddie.
mm.
I'm pretty sure that Eddie could have a great match with somebody like Shelton Benjamin, but I'm not going to pick him. And especially
I've
since
seen it against Shelton Benjamin as well. So
yeah, so it's like that. I wouldn't pick Seth Rollins.
no, Seth's an interesting one because he's one of the better workers on the roster, but I just don't feel like that sort of attachment to it. Maybe that's just my connection with the Seth Rollins character right now.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's not working for me, and I wouldn't want to see that be the final match for Guerrero.
What are your thoughts on Samoa Joe?
Samoa Joe's an interesting one because of how I've seen him work with other people that I've seen like Eddie have matches with, and I think he's somebody who really adapts to the style of the other person very well. And depending on what sort of environment he's in, he can really pull out a great match with pretty much anybody.
He's high
So
up there for me, but he's not my pick.
yeah, same. He's a very very good option, and like that's a safe bet to go with, but not quite like a definite yes please that sort of reaction.
It like another thing I tend to apply when it comes to this is there's almost that sort of, if this is one more match, this is their last match, they're going out, whatever, heel or face, win or lose, And there's some kind of responsibility to make it something that would feel like people wouldn't go, really, that person? And I kind of feel like Samoa Joe, as much as I'm a huge fan of Samoa Joe, and I really wish that he can be a world champion, and I really want to see him against a lot of other people, I feel like people would be disappointed if it was Joe was the pick.
Are you saying objectively that you don't think that Baron Corbin will get that reaction?
Oh, no, he would.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't pick Corbin. Like, I feel like Corbin's high up on my, if you could get like 10 people kind of thing. Like, he definitely would be a part of that. But in the grand scheme of things, I can't pick Baron Corbin for that. And same thing for Samoa Joe. Like, if you did Samoa Joe versus Eddie Guerrero and you left all these other people on the table, I feel like people would be perpetually saying, but what about Daniel Bryan? What about the guy I'm eventually going to pick? And like, and that kind of thing. So I'd love Joe versus Guerrero. That would be one hell of a feud, but I can't pick him.
No, same.
Same thing for Randy Orton.
Seen it as well. Again, it's one of those ones that we have seen a very limited amount of time because Randy Orton was really just coming up the ranks at the same time that Guerrero was in his prime. But so it would be a very different dynamic now, but I just don't feel like that's going to be as interesting a match as some of the other ones we could put on.
Yeah, and he's learned a lot. He's changed his style. I feel like now it would be better than when he was able to actually wrestle Eddie. Yet, that wouldn't be the one that I think people would gravitate towards. Kevin Owens is another one high up, but I wouldn't pick him.
Yeah, just Kevin's great. He's one of those other ones that just put it with anybody and you can have a great match because Kevin's that good.
I think Kevin was my pick for Shawn, if I remember correctly. And
I think that's fair. I think that's maybe a closer one than the Guerrero one.
Because Kevin Owens just awesome.
Yeah.
He is so good in the ring. He's so good with feuds. He gets it in a way that I think a lot of people don't. Something just clicks with Kevin Owens. And obviously he would be the heel. He would wreck Eddie. And he'd be great for like the fun spots too, because he can kind of laugh at himself. But you can buy him being a serious fighter too. Like,
I would love to see his react. I think he would, like his facial expressions when Guerrero tossed a chair towards him.
Yeah.
And then him going down and then the referee, that would be like, I can just picture that being absolutely outstanding work.
Like his reaction of being like, no, I didn't do it. What are you talking about? I didn't hit him with the chair. Like that kind of thing. He would sell that better than probably most people.
Yeah, I would say like if you're just going for that one spot, nobody would do it better than Kevin Owens would do.
Probably, yeah. Let's see here. No to Jinder Mahal. No to. I'd say no to Drew McIntyre.
It'd be interesting, but again, it's just like I just don't feel like that would be the one pick.
I could see a lot of people picking this guy, and he's very high up on my list, but I have to ultimately say that there's still one person higher than him, but I don't think that it's a bad pick if you go with Andrade.
Andrade, I mean, I kind of want to group a lot of picks together, and maybe one of them is your pick, so I don't want to go too much of it, but there is like this cacophony of like Latin America superstars.
Yeah, Angel Garza would be in there. Like,
yeah, so it's Andrade and Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo really are the three that kind of stand out to me.
I can pass on the Carrillo thing.
I feel like as a bare bones worker, Carrillo is great, and I feel I know that he lacks a little bit of like I guess flourish to his character and stuff like that. But I feel like just as a worker, he has a lot of skill and diversity to his range of stuff. I feel like get him a few years down the road where he's got a bit more seasoning and he's got a bit more of a persona surrounding him would have a really good feud with Guerrero. But really out of those three, the two that have the most about them right now are Andrade and Garza.
Yeah.
I think they'd both be excellent choices. probably Andrade is probably the better of the two of them, even though Angel Garza has a lot of. I think he's more charismatic than Andrade is.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And so maybe just an in-ring charisma and maybe the feud side of it, because Garza speaks a better English, so they'd be able to have a bit more of a, I guess you'd call traditional promo style things, whereas Andrade would have to do a lot of the work for Zelina Vega, which wouldn't be a terrible thing. But I feel like, but Andrade's just the more complete worker out of the two of them right now. So I feel Andrade has the better match, and Angel Garza has a bit more of the showmanship side of it, which Guerrero obviously has a lot of as well.
I always feel like, I like to merge things. If you take Andrade and Angel Garza and you put them together, you've got a top main event guy. Like the little bits that Angel Garza is missing right now, Andrade has, and the little bits that Andrade is missing, Angel Garza has. So they're together, they would be a world champion, and they might both get to that point. Like they're both still very good, but given the choice between the two, if you were gonna have a long feud, like you work up and down the road, you do house shows, all this other kind of stuff, I feel like Angel Garza would get more out of it. But if you're going to go with just the main stage, we're setting up a thing in February that's going to lead to WrestleMania, you go Andrade.
Yeah, I could probably get on board with that. Before we talk about who I'm almost certain is your number one pick, because there's very little other option than this one person. What do you think about Frog Splash versus Frog Splash, Montez Ford and Guerrero?
They just do a frog splash off.
Well, yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, there's nothing else really to that match other than just getting to who hits the frog splash first. Because even though I think Montez Ford as an overall wrestler still has a bit of a way to go, he's definitely getting there, but he just needs a bit more development. He has the best frog splash in wrestling right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that dude jumps up so high. I don't know how the hell he does it.
Yeah, so it'll be fun just for that moment, but as an overall final match, that's not quite it.
You know what I'd like to see even more than the two of them in a match?
Mm.
I'd like to see the two of them partner and to do kind of like how the Usos have like the two frog splashes from the opposite sides of the ring. I'd like to see the two of them do a frog splash at the same time.
I think that'd be cool.
And then like Montez can pop up and just be like, I just did a frog splash with Eddie Guerrero. Like, grab the camera and go all crazy. For that matter too, since we know how much of a fan Sasha Banks is of Eddie, I feel like it would be kind of rude to not have some scenario where like Sasha couldn't like team up with Eddie or do like a mixed tag match or something like that. Like if we were to do any kind of a mixed tag, like I would want Sasha in there because I know how much it would mean to her. Like,
yeah, that would be a pretty cool one as well. Yeah, she would definitely get a huge kick out of that as well. So,
like how awful would it be if it was like Eddie Guerrero is back and he's going to wrestle a match and it's going to be a mixed tag match and it's going to be happening in 2020 and we're going to have Bailey and Becky and some guy and Eddie. And
well,
then it would just be like,
it'd be Charlotte.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it would be Charlotte and Andrade against Becky and Eddie. And then they would just like leave Sasha out, and she'd just be like, "What? No, it's just I can't But let's.
I mean, I was just gonna say, but you really want to have someone teaming with Eddie that's just gonna do his moves because you're just gonna see that from Eddie anyway. So
That's true.
Yeah, you're already getting that with Eddie Guerrero being there. You don't need somebody who's just doing all the same stuff. It'd be someone that has to complement him a little bit. I'm sure Sasha would be able to work very well with it though. Like him and Sasha against Andrade and Charlotte sounded like a pretty good match to me.
I'd watch it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess we're in agreement here. Apollo Crews is definitely the best option, right?
I mean, he seems to be like the option that you turn to during the COVID-19 crisis of just like, oh, who do we throw out against? Okay, just put Apollo Crews out there.
Wasn't he Kurt Angle's last like match before Corbin?
I don't think he was the last match. He was definitely one of the last people that he fought. But I think the guy before Corbin, I think was either Styles or Joe. I think it was Styles actually was his final match before Corbin.
Well,
which is interesting enough.
I mean, it's AJ Styles, right?
Like he is well, to quote him, a phenomenal pick, because like just how great of a worker is AJ Styles.
He's my overall pick. Out of all these different rosters, out of all these options, if you told me you only have one match, it's Eddie Guerrero versus blank, whether it's AEW, New Japan, NXT UK, whatever. When I looked at the list last night and I went through, I had my Daniel Bryan option, I had my King Corbin option, I had Samoa Joe, I had Andrade, and Andrade was very, very close, but ultimately I was just like, you know what? Nobody's going to get a better full-on feud and match with him than Styles.
I think it's hard to argue against that point, just because of how well Styles adapts to fit into everybody else's style, that his character work, his actual in-ring stuff. It's just, it'd be an excellent blend of it, because Styles has come on. He was always a great wrestler in TNA, and it's not like that he's evolved immensely since joining WWE, but his character work has come a very long way since joining WWE. And that side of things would really carry him well against Eddie Guerrero. He's definitely, like, I'm still like batting around some ideas in terms of my top pick, but AJ would definitely be one of the big ones in the conversation.
I feel like he can technically wrestle. He can do some high flying stuff. He gets the psychology. He's a good heel. He's a good babyface. So obviously, I said before, I think that Eddie would be the babyface, but they could do the opposite if need be. Like, they'd figure it out. But Styles as a heel, in particular, going into this, I think would work really well. I think that he could kind of bring a certain swagger to it that some other people wouldn't bring. Like, for instance, Daniel Bryan, yeah, you're going to get a great match and everything like that, but I kind of feel like the more engaging feud between the two would be Styles and Guerrero versus Bryan and Guerrero.
Yeah, I can kind of see that as well, just because even though Daniel Bryan's proven to be a great heel in the past as well, I just feel like at his current iteration, that'd be just like a bit of a change in dynamic for him. Like, it'd be a bit jarring, whereas Styles fits in really perfectly with the heel persona at the moment.
And I also kind of feel like Styles has a little bit of that Kevin Owens in him we were talking about earlier. Like, he'd be able to sell things really well.
Yeah, I think that would be great as well. Yes,
who else? Go ahead.
I was Styles is just like really like a complete performer, and that really meshes with Guerrero being a complete performer as well.
So who else are you batting around?
Well, it's people that we mentioned before. So AJ Styles is high up there. I think Andrade is still high up on the agenda for me. I think it's them and Bryan, really. And honestly, if I'm looking at if going to bring in the New Japan side of things, I still can't shake Jay White thing being great for me. Like, either him or Naito, I think, could really pull out something well as well. So they're probably like the 5 names that I'm batting around in my head. But I have one more thing to mention. I know we wouldn't bring this guy up because of the kind of stipulations we put in earlier about can't bring in guys that are retired or guys that are dead. But this is a match that theoretically could happen at some point if this guy was to unretire himself. And he said that he's at least in the idea, in like the ballpark of maybe doing it at some point, which is CM Punk.
For some reason, I'm thinking, you talking about Corey Graves?
No,
I'm
not talking
I'm like, what the hell? I did not expect that to happen. But yeah, Punk. Yeah, so completely different story.
The Punk one, I think, would be interesting just because of his feud with Jeff Hardy. Because Eddie is also a guy who went through his demons in the past, had to overcome all the addiction, everything around that side of things. And Punk played off that character really well. So I feel like it wouldn't be the same because Punk hasn't been in the ring for a long time, and I wouldn't want somebody who's like ring rusty coming in, and that would be the guy that has the final match with Guerrero. But I just thought it was an interesting one to bring up just because of that aspects of like we know what the feud would be essentially based around because we've seen it in action before.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great feud. And if the ring rust wasn't there and all that, I'm sure it'd be a great match too.
If it comes down to it, honestly, and I didn't expect to go into it because I'm just trying to picture all of these matches in my mind. I really genuinely think that I would go with Jay White.
Oh, wow.
As my one. If it's a WWE based thing, I'd probably end up going with Styles. The same with you. But if we're going across all the wrestling ones that I kind of watch and am familiar with, I'd probably go Jay White.
Did not expect that to be the case. I actually thought that you'd go Andrade.
Andrade's probably like if I'm putting those 5 in order, it'd probably be Bryan at number 5, then Naito, then Andrade, then Styles, and then
Jay White.
Jay White, yeah. I just feel like what he's doing right now, his character will really work well with what Guerrero's doing. What Guerrero did in his prime. But yeah, but Styles is definitely not in no shape or form a bad pick by any stretch of imagination.
And we're gonna obviously love to hear what everybody else has to say too. I mean, I'm sure that people have arguments for some other different people here and there, and especially if you have like, you're really big in like MLW or Ring of Honor, like let us know. Like, who do you think would be good options for that? Because we don't really follow that.
I'm sure I've annoyed a lot of people almost in the same way that you saying like Baron Corbin was high up on your list without saying the Jay White thing, because there are some people like me that absolutely love what Jay White does most of the time, and there's some people that absolutely hate Jay White. And so anybody who's watched your listing that is very familiar with New Japan is in that boat of hating Jay White. I can only apologize, but I have to go call it like I see it.
And anybody who is really annoyed about the Baron Corbin pick, you're wrong. Baron Corbin would work really well. Obviously, opinions are all over the place, but I want to know what your opinions are. So drop a comment below. Tell us your thoughts on that. Tell us your thoughts on what we were bringing to the table with this. Do you agree with our picks? Do you think that we've got people higher up than we should? Are we completely sleeping on somebody that you were thinking, like, why are they not talking about Ivar or something? I don't know. But yeah, keep the discussion going. Love to hear more about that stuff. And if you want us to do one more match things in the future, there's the Patreon. There's just being patient for whenever we do that, because we don't know when we're going to do any of these kind of things. But I love doing these. I really, in particular, like going and looking at the past and comparing it to the future and the present, and kind of doing these little fantasy booking things in a way that isn't super dedicated as being like, I gotta set aside a whole card and that kind of thing, because I think that's a lot of fun that we don't really get to do all that often. So thank you, Guest 5, for suggesting this, because it's a lot of fun. And I think that's about it. I don't think there is anything other things that we're missing out on, right? We don't have any kind of other gimmicks that I'm forgetting about for one more match, do we?
No, I don't recall. I don't recall anything else. I think we've made our picks about who we want to have as one last match, and yeah, just invite you guys to do the same.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys.
We had to reach consensus or anything.
No, and I mean, I think we kind of like, for a 2-person thing, we kind of do have a little bit of a consensus. If it's WWE, it's AJ Styles. If it's not, then I'm not a great person to be able to pick. So.
yeah, that's fair enough. Like we both agree that if Eddie Guerrero's final match was coming back to WWE, it would be against AJ Styles. So
yeah,
I think that's consensus enough that we need.
Yeah, and if not that, I think we'd probably both go with like maybe Andrade as like a backup or so.
Oh yeah, Andrade's like the alternative if Styles is definitely buried and is never coming back.
Yeah, which may be the case. I don't know. And it would be a regular match, not some kind of a weird gimmicky Firefly Funhouse type of thing too. They'd have to be in the ring. I did most of my plugs. I think I mentioned fanboysanonymous.com, and if I didn't, check it out. Geek culture stuff, movie reviews, all that stuff. You should know that by now, though. You should follow the Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. You should follow my Facebook and Twitter at Tony Mango. Follow all these other things all over the place. Just start clicking around on the social media accounts, and you'll see plenty of different ways for you to interact with some different things. So, share your support. I love it. If you leave comments, I love it. If you follow, I love it. Likes, favorites, all that stuff is great. And you should do the same thing when it comes to Callum.
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out all of the articles on smarkatmoment.com, but especially the power rankings, because we did the WrestleMania reboot edition that went up earlier today or yesterday, whenever you're listening to this. And yeah, so you can see who's ranked in top of it for the first week of 2020 to 21. As WWE seems to be committing to do more shows going forward, I guess we're still in business as far as this is concerned. So it will change week to week. We'll see people progress, follow the league table, all that other stuff. But yeah, that's it from me.
And I think that's like the end of the content for this week that we're going to be doing, but we're going to be heading into next week with the mailbag that I mentioned before. I'm still hoping that we can do this live at around 3 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, the whatever day Wednesday is. I don't know. I'm not going to bother to do the math. But that is in the schedule for right now. Things may change. Maybe the time will change. Maybe it won't be able to be live. I don't really know 100% for sure, but that's the game plan right now. So if you are not potentially able to join us live and you want to make sure that you get some mailbag questions in for us to answer, because this is the quarter two mailbag. We haven't done one since January. We're not going to do another one again until I think August is the plan, if I remember correctly. Then, go ahead and send in those mailbag questions ahead of time. You can do that by leaving a comment below on YouTube. You can send a tweet at SmarkOutMoment or at Tony Mango. Or the best thing out of all the options is to go to the contact form on smarkoutmoment.com or on the sidebar. There's different ways for you to come across it on the website. If you fill that out and you select the little mailbag question thing, that's very easy for me to kind of keep track of. So send in those questions. We'll try to answer as many of them as we can. And then, of course, the hot tags are happening next week at some point. It's either going to be Tuesday or Thursday or Friday. I'm not entirely sure yet. Monday is probably going to be packed for me, so it might not be after Raw. And we just did one, so I don't really want to do a hot tag super close, so I'm thinking maybe Thursday. We'll figure it out, and when we figure it out, we'll let you know, and we'll do that on maybe the Mega Maniacs Facebook group. Any kind of way for you to be aware of that, of course, is outside of the whole subscription thing, but the best way to know when things get posted is to ring that little notification bell, because then you know for a fact it's up there because it's already done. And we will see you on the live chat. We will see you on any kind of pre-recorded things. Hopefully you guys stick around, be safe, have fun, and enjoy the weekend. But we'll see you next time, everybody. For now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.